Morning, everyone. I love memes. I think that they are a way of gauging the zeitgeist, what the public's thinking, easily, and just kind of taking the temperature and having a look, right? Like something like this one, right? This is a picture. It's got nine tiles, and at the top it says, "There's a fire in the building. You can only save two." And the first picture is Catherine McKenna, and the second picture is Jagmeet Singh, and the third picture is an order of McDonald's French fries, and the fourth picture is Dr. Tam, and the fifth picture is Justin Trudeau, and the sixth picture is Rosemary Barton, and the seventh picture is Gerald Butts, and the eighth picture is a Big Mac. No, that's a quarter pounder, and the ninth is also a quarter pounder. I mean, Chrystia Freeland, and I mean, which two instinctively would you save? The human side of you doesn't want you to pick the quarter pounder and the McDonald's, but everything else in you wants to pick the quarter pounder and the McDonald's. Okay, here is a story in 4 parts, and it's all about we. And the first part is we got caught. Second is we apologize, starring Justin Trudeau, by the way. If you're audio only, this is a meme cut into 4. Number 3 is we won't do it again, says Trudeau, and we, number 4, are going down. See, it says Trudeau's poll numbers, right? And I don't know, the opposition parties are still a mess. I was looking because I thought this leadership race for the Conservatives is lasting forever. When is it going to be over? August 21st is when it's going to be over. August 21st. The ballots have to be in on August 21st. So anyway, back to we. Sorry for the waylay. This is a National Post piece about Bill Morneau, and then we're going to get into some we stuff. Now, not that I think that the we scandal is waning at all, but I mean, it is a Sunday, and there's been a lot of new revelations in the last couple of days, even revelations that Trudeau himself hasn't had press time to address. So he hasn't had questions on a lot of the issues that have been brought to light in the last 24 to 36 hours since Friday afternoon, let's say. And some of those are the We Foundation's holding company. Some of those are the amount of which the amount of real estate holdings which we holds, and the further ethics breaches of senior cabinet members, right? And that was known beforehand. Morneau was testifying. What's happening big this week? Trudeau will be testifying, right? At some point. I'm not sure exactly when, but Trudeau's scheduled. So it's going to be an interesting week. More fireworks to come, but it is a Sunday with lots that has happened, so there's not a lot of new news. So we're going to go over a couple of other things, talk about a little bit of what does we actually do. It's a $60 million charity, $8 million of which is spent outside of Canada. In other countries, the rest of it is spent inside of Canada. Isn't that odd? That's an interesting thing. Anyway, first, why is Bill Morneau still here? The catastrophe isn't his first blunder. I used this article just because of the use of catastrophe. I thought that was funny. Okay, I submit, says the Mr. Selly, Chris Selly. For example, Finance Minister Bill Morneau's latest snafu is objectively hilarious, having to repay $41,366 to We for family trips to Ecuador and Kenya in 2017. Morneau framed it as a surprising account revelation. He thought he paid for the trips, but when he emptied out his paper bag marked Receipts 2017, he was shocked not to be able to find the relevant documents. The We organization framed it a bit differently. Quote, yesterday the Morneau-McCain family reached out to us to ask if, in fact, their trip had been complimentary, it said in a statement on Wednesday. We confirmed that it was. Yikes. The thing about that is that it's quite illegal for government ministers to accept gifts that might reasonably be seen to have been given to influence the public office holder in the exercise of an official power, duty, or function. You can ask the Prime Minister about it. The Summer Jobs Volunteering Program contract was by far the largest deal the government had struck with We, but it was not the first. At least 5 times since 2017, the feds had contracted with We for work described in official records as management consulting, public relations services, and other professional services not otherwise specified. If We were trying to extract some subtle revenge on its erstwhile liberal buddies, it couldn't have done any better. To be fair to Morneau, it is entirely believable that he thought he had paid for the family trip as he claims, or indeed that he hadn't thought about it at all. To the extent that I can imagine having as much money as he does, let alone how much he has access to for marrying into the McCain potato fortune, I'm guessing amounts in the neighborhood of $41,000 fairly routinely get spent or not without coming to his notice. So that's a not so subtle dig at how rich Morneau is, and the fact that he had $41,000 just sitting in a checking account to yesterday when he realized that he hadn't paid to just pay it off. The benefits of being rich, right? But it begs the question, does that absolve the problem? That because he paid for it now, a few years later, does that remove the gift? Does that remove the influence that it purchased? Does that remove the contracts since 2017 to now? The potential conflict of interest handed out by the finance minister who just clean forgot. I don't know finance, right? Is that believable? Is that something that's reasonable to float for your finance minister? Is that something that's reasonable to float for a finance minister who you're keeping in the portfolio? That doesn't seem right to me, right? Oh man, he totally forgot that payment, but he's not screwing up the country's finances. He's just screwing up his own office, his own reputation, his own, all of those things by not paying this bill since 2017 and having the air of inappropriate dealings cast over everything he's done since then, right? So it seems like, circle the wagons until you can't anymore. Miss Chegger is not a suitable sacrifice, Mr. Trudeau, it seems. Okay, here is What Does We Charity Actually Do? This is by Jesse Brown and Canada Land. They've been doing good work with this. As I said, this is getting a little, not necessarily thin. This was published on July 25th. Today is July 26th. Again, it's a Sunday. Like I said, there's lots of news. This is what do other charities think about the Wheeze situation. And I don't necessarily like the outside looking in. We think blah, blah, blah. There's some information here that's worth talking about. The information that's worth talking about, I think, is the amount that's spent in Canada and outside of Canada. So I'm going to highlight that. Still, lots of good work by Canada Land. I don't agree with their politics at all. But, I mean, they're doing good work on this one. So, hey, there you go. We'll give them clicks. Okay, what does We Charity actually do? Beset by scandal and scrutiny, We Charity announced earlier this month that it will cancel the We Days, pull its physical presence from schools, clarify the blurry line between itself and Me to We business, and return to its roots by prioritizing international development work. But what is that work? We describes its approach as a holistic development model that provides 5 pillars of international development: education, healthcare, clean water and sanitation, food security, and alternative income programs. I scroll down a bit. According to We Charity's 2019 audited financial statements, and there's the PDF that you can check for yourself. Link is in the description. Not to the PDF, to the article. It provides $8.7 million to local nonprofits that operate and supply its We Villages project in 9 countries, an average of less than $1 million per country, and that's borne out here. Okay, so that's the total, just under 9 million. $8,736,000, 2018, $6,385,000. Okay, so you see the difference. Scrolling down, any Canadian-based charity doing development work abroad will incur some program oversight costs at home, but given the disparity between the two figures, Canada Land asked We what percentage of their international program spending in 2019 was actually spent in Canada. We Charity did not answer that question. They did say that some of their international program spending goes to international suppliers and We Charity global staff, as well as education and advocacy programs, including in North America. They did not provide a breakdown of how much money goes to each. Advocacy programs? Okay, a lot of the rest of this article is breaking down what they're doing in each program and then what former We employees say. I'm not so interested in this, but I am interested in advocacy programs, how much spending is done outside of Canada versus spending inside of Canada. So if it's a $60 million charity and $8 million is spent outside of Canada, how is the other 50 odd million spent? What's it doing? Do people know that they're just buying real estate for this family? Those are my questions. When you donate to We, do you understand that this is what you're going, that what you're running is that, right? I don't think that they do. I think they think they're donating to an international charity that does good in other countries. That's what I think that people who donate to that believe. Here is National Post, and they say, who does Voluntourism actually help? Trips run by We and other charities draw skepticism. So this is what I'm talking about. It's getting kind of a little thin now, right? They're like, oh, other charities think this about We, about their programs. So it's a little bit, so take it with a grain of salt. But I do like to share what's going on here. And this one is also talking about the benefits of voluntourism and what the vacations that cost the same as the trip that Morneau had to pay for, based on the per person amount, are actually doing, right? So here it is. Here it is. Part of We Charity's overseas trip allow people from North America to, quote, step into the shoes of Maasai warriors in Kenya or experience a shamanic ceremony and get hands-on weapons training in Ecuador. Yep, it says that. The trips offered through We's for-profit arm Me to We cost over $4,000 US. This week, Finance Minister Bill Morneau announced he had reimbursed the charity $41,000 after failing to pay for hospitality from We for 2 trips that he and his family took 2 years ago. But the sort of voluntourism trips that We and other charities have run have been greeted with some skepticism in the not-for-profit sector. Nicholas Moyer, president of the Canadian Council for International Cooperation, CCIC, an umbrella group for international aid organizations, said the risk of such trips is that they focus on the wrong people. Quote, there's many risks that voluntourism, if not set up properly, will focus primarily on the interests of the participants, not the community where they're going. Isn't that interesting? Like the people who are paying to take the vacation to bask in the glory of their greatness by, choosing to spend their vacation voluntourising would be prioritized. Shocker, right? Especially by the people who are putting the trip on, so they get more people who, because when they go back, they don't want to they don't want to have a bad time, right? So I think that it's an interesting catch-22, right? On one side, you want to give people an authentic experience. On the other side, there's going to be allegations of like, well, you're not giving an accurate portrayal, and I mean it's expensive, and that money goes far, and we've seen the what are they? The pamphlets, and it is luxurious, right? Like it's the furniture looks comfortable. It looks like they're the transportation looks nice. It looks like they're well fed. There's lots of stuff to do. So it's interesting. It's interesting the criticisms, right? I don't know. Back to this. On the Me to We website, the trip to Ecuador, which aligns with the weapons training, is the thing that gets me. Like the weapons training, I'm like, what's with the weapons training? Here's a slingshot, right? Like, is that what, or are they giving them AKs? Like, I don't. Okay, back to this. On the Me to We website, the trip to Ecuador, which aligns with what Morneau reimbursed, includes a jungle walk or canoe ride, work on a development project, and tour of an agricultural learning center where participants learn to make their own chocolate. It also includes nature walks, cooking lessons, and the shamanic ceremony with hands-on weapons training. Shamanic ceremony, hands-on weapons training. What? Okay. The Kenya trip includes many familiar features, along with the trips to giraffe centers, safari, and more weapons training. So scroll down. We Charity extended the invitation to Nancy McCain and Bill Morneau because they're well-known philanthropists with a history of significant donations to international development programs. Morneau's press secretary said the family was interested in attending as part of a long-running philanthropic efforts in Africa. Quote, before he ran for office, the minister's family led the development of a girls' school in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, and over the last 3 years, they continued their efforts to help refugee students from Kenya continue their education here in Canada, he said in an email. Ministers are prohibited from accepting sponsored travel under ethics rules. Morneau said at committee he had covered the $52,000 for airfare and hotels on the trip, but had not paid for his time at We's facilities. Porto said the lack of payment was an oversight, which is why he paid for the costs this week. As the minister stated, he expected and always had intended to pay the full cost of these trips and believed he had done so. He acknowledges that not doing so, even unknowingly, was not appropriate. So here's the way out of the conflict of interest or the specter of impropriety over the last few years. He thought he paid for it, so no conflict because he didn't know that he didn't pay for it. I don't know if that's believable. I don't know. I don't think I believe that. But again, the criticism of it's too nice a vacation and not focusing on I don't know. The focus on the weapons training is because I don't understand which weapons they're training them on. Traditional weapons or like modern weapons or some in between, bows and arrows. I don't know what does weapons training look like in 2020? Like, how can you put that on your website? I haven't looked to see if they clarify what weapons training is on the We website. So full disclosure, I'm reacting to this at this point in time, so I apologize that I haven't looked. Sometimes I would go and look, but I'm not going to go look today. Okay, here is 2017, July 17th, 2019, so almost a year ago. And this is when former Prime Minister of Canada, Kim Campbell, and Margaret Trudeau and the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya joined Craig Kielburger to celebrate We Charity's first post-secondary institution in Kenya. Okay, so this is not necessarily voluntourism. They're going to ribbon cut, but I wonder who paid for those flights, right? Look at these photo ops, right? Everybody's happy and clapping, right? And here's the important part, I suppose. The ceremony brought together learners, community members, as well as honorary guests from Canada and Kenya, including former Prime Minister of Canada, Kim Campbell, celebrated Canadian mental health advocate, author, and mother of the current Prime Minister of Canada, Margaret Trudeau, and Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya. So, interesting, right? I wonder if that's included in any of the... Is that a diplomatic trip that includes we? What does that look like, right? Here is, so that's the We scandal for today. There's going to be more tomorrow. There's going to be more hearings. There's going to be more testimony. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be wild. At the same time, do I think it will bring down Trudeau? I don't know. I think he might shuffle the cabinet to sidestep having to punish Minister Morneau, because if he punishes Morneau, he has to punish himself. And I'm sure that, well, maybe the Bloc and the Conservatives would agree with that. I don't know that they could get the NDP and the Greens to get on board with that. But even so, there's an argument to be made. If what Morneau did warranted him stepping down, then certainly what Trudeau did warrants him stepping down too, right? So that's why we haven't seen movement there. Okay, here is a visual, because I want to talk about COVID-19 briefly. Here's a visual about how insane, this is from NHS, this is from the United Kingdom, okay? And you can see that at the top, NHS England data. So this is not Canadian data, this is British data. But this is when they're mandating face masks. This is the same thing that's happening here. Nova Scotia is mandating masks on July 31st. In my city, we have one person in hospital and 16 cases total, mandated masks. Why? And I've asked, by which criteria can we repeal the mandatory order? At what point can we repeal it? And everybody said, that's a question that I'm not allowed to ask. That's a question that only far-right people ask, apparently. Because that's how they shut you up, right? Oh, only conspiracy theorists would ask that. Actually, no. We have very clear freedoms, and there has been a court document filed in Ontario that outlines how mandatory masks violates our charter rights. How a lot of these draconian emergency policies that have been turned into law by the Ford government, by Bill 195, in Ontario anyway. And I apologize for the rest of the country that I don't know all of your intricate laws. I just don't have time. But in Ontario anyway, they've extended the emergency indefinitely by enshrining the emergency laws into law and not declaring a further state of emergency. And that contravenes our basic, well, that contravenes the charter, but it contravenes our basic human rights, and it's not appropriate, and it needs to be pushed back on. Powers like this, mandatory masks, should have an automatic sunset. Should be, we're going to reassess in 2 weeks, and if these things are true, then we'll continue it, and if they are not true, then it is automatically repealed. That's how it should be built, and I can't believe that there's not a system like that in place at this point in time. Usually that's shrouded in emergency orders, right? But the emergency order was repealed, and yet still mandatory masks. What is going on? It's not appropriate. Very, very concerning. Okay, we've got a couple more stories. 2 more, 3 more. Okay. Violent property crimes continue to rise in Winnipeg. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. The stats are saying that the violent property crimes are going up. They are. Crime is going up. Lots of crime. Drugs are going down in Winnipeg, which I thought was weird. But crime's going up. Okay. Links in the description if you want to read the whole thing. Here is Christopher F. Rufo, and he is a director of Discovery Institute Center on Wealth and Poverty, contributing editor of City Journal. And he says, Seattle is quickly moving forward with its plan to abolish prisons. I've received a trove of leaked documents from within the King County Executive's office claiming that the justice system is a white supremacist institution that it must be dismantled. It is explosive. The document begins by claiming that the justice system is built on a foundation of racism, white fragility, and white supremacist culture. They say that whites have a need to control and have designed social conditions to oppress people of color. Next, they claim the jails are designed as a system of oppression based on race and built to maintain white supremacy. The plan to permanently shut down the jails is centered on the obligation to isolate race and examine the presence and role of whiteness. Next, the government defines white culture as one that focuses on the corrupt and racist values of individuality, meritocracy, linearity, progress, objectivity, and the written word. In the attached glossary, the officials claim that whites uphold the U.S. white supremacy system, oppress people of color, and have unearned power and privileges associated with having white skin, what they call whiteism. According to my source, during the meetings, Kings County legal staff repeatedly called the county court system a white supremacist organization and even declared that light-skinned emojis and emails are racist symbols of white approval. The plan to close jails is explicitly predicated on the idea that the government is responsible for the problem of crime and that criminal offenders are the true rights holders who must be honored and celebrated. The executives predicted that the decision to permanently close the jails will cause stress, confusion, and a sense of overwhelm, but ultimately internal racism will come to the surface, and there will be a shift in power structure. This is a plan emanating from the highest levels of the county government, including the senior leadership of the Juvenile Division County Courts and King County Executive's Office. They have embraced critical race theory as the operating philosophy behind prison abolition. The result will be chaos. Seattle and King County are moving to cut the police department by 50% and the county jail capacity by at least 60%, which will lead to the collapse of public order, all in pursuit of a critical race theory utopia. It's time to push back. Abolishing the police and abolishing prisons is wrong, dangerous, and insane. Our society's elites professing the virtues of wokeness will end up hurting the poorest and most vulnerable, who will be immediately victimized in their communities. Here are the original source documents from within the King County Executive's Office outlining the plan to permanently close the county's largest jail and eliminate all youth incarceration. P.S. If you want to support him, there's how to do that. So he put together that thread. I want to show you this. CBC, so that is not in Canada, but it is here. Okay, they're talking about critical race theory. They're talking about abolishing the white supremacist system that they have defined by themselves. Okay, here's the CBC. It says CBC offers 3 steps for fighting systemic racism. And it says, don't explain systemic racism. It says, so you've been asked to explain systemic racism, don't waste your breath. To be asked to prove and demonstrate what has long been articulated, documented, and disseminated. In this instance, the existence of systemic racism is not only insulting, it's a well-worn strategy designed to waste time. It's frequently deployed to misdirect the focus of a story or present a long-debated issue as though it is something new. So what they're saying is, if you even ask about defining systemic racism, you are trying to basically derail the argument. This is written by... This is Black Light. It's a weekly column by Governor General award-winning writer Amanda Paris that spotlights, champions, and challenges art and popular culture that is created by Black people and/or centers Black people. And this is from CBC Arts. Okay, but in CBC Arts, they're giving room to this idea, and I have encountered this idea personally. Here's the Upper Grand District School Board and what they think. This is them defining critical race theory. This is in your town. This is in the policymakers are making policies that sound like this. If you haven't heard about it, go look at what they're doing. I promise you it looks like this. Here we go.
Briefly, what critical race theory was developed by lawyers, and what it says is that we understand that race is a social construct, and that the systems that we are working in presently in education, they were specifically talking about law, but it's the same application, that because the systems were all developed by folks who were white, that they are inherently a racist in that. And so what I think people get...
And there's much more, even just in this clip. I'm not going to play more, but even saying... any system created by white people is inherently racist because it was created by white people, which is exactly what this person is saying. And you can listen to the full context if you're interested in the whole thing right there. It's an hour and a half long or 2 hour long board meeting from June 16th, 2020. But the point is, this is what they're going for. This is what they're trying to insert into schools, into prisons, into governments. This is not, I'm not making this up. This is not overstated. The CBC is training people to shut down conversations, asking for any proof, and backhandedly saying it's been proven. But it's not. It has not been proven. Systemic racism? I asked the superintendent of the Upper Grand District School Board. I asked multiple board trustees. I asked a whole bunch of people to give me examples, and the examples they gave me were far lacking. They said, we've had students who've gone an entire year with people unable to pronounce their last name. And I said, can you please pronounce my last name? What's my last name? And she just looked at me and smiled, and I said, and it's not racist that you can't pronounce my last name. Right? It's not. That's not racism. It's not. And so this is coming. And fighting back against it is the pump is being primed to shut you down already. So even if you have questions like, what's systemic racism? What are you talking about? I thought everybody was equal under the eyes of the law. Everybody had the same opportunities, and what you do with those opportunities is up to you. But no. Equality now means equality of outcome. You have to get exactly the same thing as everybody else. If you graduate high school, you have to get a $70,000 job if one person gets a $70,000 job. And if not, that's racism. That's where we're at. It's incredible. It is incredible because of how wrong-headed it is and how it enables victimization of the people, victimization of themselves. They choose to be the victims because being the victims is paid off. They've been told that they're the victims all their life, rather than saying you have a responsibility to make of yourself what you can. Do your best and things will come to you. Good things will come to you. But if you sit there like a bump on a log and do nothing except complain, nothing will come to you. You understand? Unfortunately, our kids these days don't understand. They don't, because they've been told to be victims. And so have the adults. And they've believed it. Put your mask on. Wash your hands. It's very, very frightening what's going on in our country. And it is happening across the West. And it is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a right-wing, alt-right talking point. These things are happening. And if we don't speak up, we'll miss our opportunities to speak up. It will be too late. It might already be too late. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful